This is Disruption Digest, a podcast where we look at the world of AI in plain English. I'm Jamie Hugh, your host.
And as always, I'm Jarrett Miller, your co-host. We're excited to have back with us Madison Coffin. We didn't scare you off from the last time we had you on. Madison, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Madison Coffin. I am a technical specialist at Microsoft. I'm excited for our session here today.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Before we get into the full episode, normally we would go into JobsGPT, which, we created a custom GPT that basically responds to questions as Steve Jobs would. But today we got something special. So a few weeks ago, we found a very interesting video, a real video of Steve talking about, his thoughts on what the future held back in 1985. I think is very relevant. So we're going to go ahead and roll the video right now.
Do you know who Alexander the tutor was for about 14 years? Aristotle. And I read this. I became immensely jealous. And I think I would have enjoyed that a great deal. And through the miracle of the printed page, I can at least read what Aristotle wrote without an intermediary. And maybe if there's a professor, they can add to that. But at least I can go directly to the source material. And that is, of course, the foundation upon which our Western civilization is built. But I can't ask Aristotle a question. I mean, I can, but I won't get an answer. And so my hope is that in our lifetimes, we can make a tool of a new kind, of an interactive kind. And so my hope is someday, when the next Aristotle is alive, we can capture the underlying worldview of that Aristotle in a computer. And someday, some student will be able to not only read the words Aristotle wrote, but ask Aristotle a question and get an answer.
So, Madison, what do you think of that? I mean, that is kind of spooky, isn't it? What do you think of what Steve said?
It is. And especially when you start thinking about when that was recorded, right? 1985, being able to have that type of foresight is crazy. And I think it'd be interesting to hear what he would predict now as far as the future as well.
That's what we have JobsGPT for, right, Jarrett?
I suppose.
Was there any sort of idea even out there about generative AI back in 1985? Or did he just come up with this on his own and it just shows that level of, or how big of a visionary Steve Jobs is?
Well, Jarrett, machine learning was still a thing back in the kind of 80s, but it was very simplistic. And we certainly didn't have deep learning. We didn't have the advanced neural networks that we enjoy today. And so I don't think there would be any way for him to fully predict that would happen. But it just shows he had a pretty good vision of where the industry was going to go.
Oh, very impressive.
Absolutely.
It makes me sad because I can't even predict or have visions of where this is going to go in the next 2 to 3 years, much less predict 40 years out from now where this will lead and head.
I know, right? I can't even predict what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow. So at that point, oh my goodness.
That's why he made the big bucks.
He said it. He totally said it. That's so true. All right. I've got a really interesting episode for both of you today. We've all seen some really wacky AI stuff. Some of it is what I would describe as hidden gems, just simply amazing. Others are weird. Others are charming, but maybe a little bit too far at the deep end. And so today I've got a number of different videos, demos of AI in action. Both of you have not seen these. And what I like to do is showcase these to you in order to get your reactions. So I hope you've buckled up because this is going to be a bit of a wild ride. Are you both ready for this?
Yeah.
You always come up with the most off-the-wall things to show me. So I have no idea where this is going to go. I'm very excited.
Good.
I'm sure
good.
I'll be surprised.
It's funny because I will send the both of you these types of videos and links, and then we'll just laugh about and comment about it. But I think this is the first time we're going to capture this in a actual podcast. I think I'm pretty excited for that. So let's go ahead and get this first one set up. And so let me just give you context. This is from a leading AI company called Anthropic, who of course make the Claude large language model, which is a GPT-4 class model. And this is going to be them explaining or highlighting a new feature they've built into Claude 3.5, and it's called artifacts. And basically, what this allows Claude to do is essentially not only create an app or a program, but also compile and run the program, allowing you to see the results then and there. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the content, roll the video, and we'll get your reactions. All right, Madison, can you walk us through what that was? And I'd like to get your initial thoughts because that was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, what we just watched is being able to prompt Claude to code from a very basic prompt using SVG of, hey, can you create, you know, was it an octopus? An octopus cartoon, all the
Crap.
way a crab. A crab cartoon all the way to making that into a playable game using natural language. I think watching that is really cool. I've seen a couple different iterations of the ways that we can start to use natural language for coding. And I think one of the interesting thoughts that I had watching this is if you're, younger, entering the workforce or thinking about a focus area, does this change your mindset going into that? Is it something, do we still need as many coders or developers in the future if we can use tools to prompt and start to build out things like this?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, basically said, you shouldn't learn to code. He said, if you have kids, get them to think about the fundamentals of development, but not coding. Coding is less important because he feels in the future, coding will be done by AI, which I think is very interesting. But certainly that shows the real possibility of this technology, right? Because this was an entire program that was made in a span of essentially a couple of minutes. And the cool thing with the artifacts feature is having that in line with your coding and be able to interact with it and really just experience what it feels like without having to take it and compile it somewhere else.
So I had seen that same quote that kids don't need to learn how to code anymore because AI is going to be able to do that for them. And before, so I recently had 2 kids, and I dream about their futures and how I'm going to train them or what I'm going to teach them to help them be successful in their careers. And so before AI came out, I was like, I'm going to teach them to code. I want them to learn to code so they can go be successful in technology. But now that AI has come out, and there's a lot of people saying that you don't need to teach your kids to code anymore, that you just need to teach them to use AI. Well, kids love playing video games, and I don't want my kids to just spend hours uselessly playing most of the video games that are out there right now. But if they can come in here and combine this, like my desire for them to learn how to use AI and code along with their desire to want to play video games, and they can create their own video games. And I think this is a great marriage of those two desires. And so things like this make me excited for how I'm going to be able to teach my kids and get them excited about learning and how to use these tools, and they will be able to develop a skill while doing something fun that motivates them.
Great. Well, let's move on to the next video here. And so this is actually a demo. It's a demo of an application for travel that helps users essentially discover and plan their travel itineraries. And again, this was built predominantly with Claude Sonnet 3.5, which is one that you just saw. A lot of the work was done by AI. It's done by a guy called Brutal Strike on GitHub. So he's a Finnish developer. And so I'm going to go ahead and get this loaded. All right, so I'm in the app right now. And again, this whole app was predominantly built using AI, which I think is completely remarkable. There is some connectivity to Google Maps, probably via an API in the background. So the whole point is this is totally interactive, and we can zip around New York and figure out what are the sort of most interesting attractions. And, we can look at these different ones. Brooklyn Bridge looks like it's got pretty good reviews. So we can go ahead and open that up in Maps if we wanted to. So these are all linked by the API call, which I think is pretty cool. And what I can also do is add these into a itinerary. So I can add it like so, and it'll start creating this pathway between all the various attractions. Let's say, oh, look, I want to go check out St. Paul's Chapel. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And it's going to add these stops along the way. And let's add another one. Let's say, City Hall Park. Let's do that. And so I can then ask it to show an itinerary like this, and it will show me this. And again, this is completely, well, not completely, but predominantly coded in AI. I think that's remarkable. Looks like there's a restaurants mode as well. So I guess we show all. We can actually look at restaurants as well. Isn't this incredible? What do you think, Jarrett?
Yeah, so my wife and I are planning a trip to Hawaii for the fall. And I was planning it right before, or attempting to plan it right before we got on this call, actually. And I'm using ChatGPT to help me plan it. I prompted it as if it was a travel advisor, told it what we like to do. And it gave me this whole itinerary of what we could do. But it doesn't give me great context around like where these things are located and how close are they, and also what are the other options in the particular areas that it told me to go stay. So this particular type of app is much more useful, being able to integrate more other views of how to view the data that GPT is feeding you, or the output that GPT is feeding you outside of just text, to give you more context and better improve the output that it's giving you here.
All right, well, let's build your itinerary right now, Jarrett. So let's go to the botanical garden first. What else are you interested? I tell you what would be useful if they had a filter option. That'd be amazing. So I could look for different types of attractions. But the fact that this is made by AI, kind of insane. Don't you think, Madison?
Yeah, really cool.
I wish there was some way for you to prompt it, I like to hike, or I like to eat Indian food, and then it can filter out for that as well.
Yeah. And I would say this, right? It's going to change the way we think about prototyping, rapid prototyping, and app development. Because let's say we were working on a startup, some kind of app, right? SaaS platform, whatever. Then historically, it being very difficult, it would have paid a developer and maybe a team of developers lots of money to come up with this minimum viable product. But I think this is going to change how that process is going to go about, because now I can just go to AI and very quickly, with some technical skills, come up with this really quick kind of proof of concept to see if this is possible, right? And all the back end is done for me. The front end is done for me. It might not be beautiful, might not be perfect, but it really changes the time to value when we think about app development.
And it could be app development not for like, hey, I'm going to create an app that can be marketable and useful to a bunch of people. But what about like, I want to create my own app for my trip that I'm going to take. And so now I can go just have the Miller's app for their Hawaii vacation, and allows me to create my own custom app per whatever it is that I'm doing in just a little bit of time.
Even if you start to think about the ways that you're looking at an app like this, we're already, let's say, 50-60% of the way there, and you could obviously then enhance apps like this, but being able to jumpstart that process, as Jamie was saying, is really huge.
All right, let's move on to our next demo. And so this one is by a company called Blockade Labs. What it does is it generates a 360-degree panoramic cube map for gaming or for VR or other purposes. Okay, so we're inside the app right now. And what I can do with this is sketch out a rough kind of a diagram of what I want this to look like. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw an arch here, place a couple of buildings, move around like so, because it's a 3D like this. Maybe have a little tree here. Let's see if it actually recognizes a tree. I'm going to go ahead and move it again. Add another kind of tall building here. Maybe another building.
A car.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and draw a car. Maybe here. I don't know if it's. Oh, yeah, my terrible old.
Wow.
Look at my skills. Look at my skills.
If it recognizes that as a car, then this is even better than we ever imagined.
Well, let's put a couple of windows here, maybe. Finish this one. Maybe a round building. And I'll do another tree here. And then we'll go ahead and ask it to generate. So let's go with realistic. Shall we? Maybe realism. Yeah, go ahead. Generate this. Okay, so here's what it came up with. As I kind of move around, you can see this is where the arch was, right? Okay. And it's trying to fill in based on my kind of description down here. Looks like it didn't recognize the tree. So instead of giving me a tree, it gave me like a little kiosk instead.
A little awning.
But yeah, so let me just see what else it did.
Whoa, the car.
That's the car, but this is the one I drew. So it kind of it kind of got confused and drew some rubble instead. So I think that's more about my skills as an artist than it, I suppose. I think we can actually go ahead and edit this and remix this, and But again, I just want to give the two of you some indication of what this looks like. So, what do you think of this, Madison? Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, definitely had to trust the process. At first, when I was looking at your drawings, I wasn't sure if it was gonna really create something like this, but really cool, especially, potential applications with something like interior design. Like, could you, kind of get some ideas based on your space or dimensions, or something like architecture too for building a house? I think there's some pretty cool applications that you could draw from this for sure.
Right, both internal and external, I suppose, in terms of design and all sorts of ideas. I'm going to quote some numbers I'm reading from their website. According to a blog article from a few months ago, this has had over 10 million generations, 1.5 million users.
What are people using this for exactly?
So there's a couple of different use cases. One of them is within games. So if you think of games, you have usually a world map. And then to make the world map look realistic, you have this thing called a sky cube, which is essentially the background of everything. So if you think about like Street Fighter or something, you can think of the environment in the background as what this is, especially for a 3D game. And so this enables the creation of this very quickly. Another use case would be VR. So if you wanted to create a VR landscape and put users inside, then this will be a good way, because it's, as you can see, it's not proper 3D. It's a 360-degree cube map. So I can actually scroll around and even look done and things like that.
Okay. So I guess it could enable faster generation of more video games by more creators. I'm trying to think if this has any applicability to me in my life anywhere.
Probably not. But it's a very novel tool, right? I mean, for somebody to think of this, maybe it's quite niche. I think the likelihood is this kind of work is pretty niche, and the sort of people that be using this do love this tremendously, whilst for a lot of us, maybe it doesn't have that level of use case, but it's very ingenious to integrate AI in the way that it has, and to be able to do this. I just think it's pretty cool.
I also see it, if we ever get to the point where we're working just at home with the, what are the name of those goggles?
The VR headsets.
Yeah, the VR headset. Instead of me working and just staring at my regular home, this is now my background. As I turn my head, I see something, maybe not a post-apocalyptic background, but maybe something more serene and beautiful. And now I'm working in the foothills of Iceland instead of in my living room.
Nice. All right, well, let's move on to our next one. And so this is a video made through a SaaS called Kling AI with a K. So this is a Chinese text-to-video service, quite similar to Runway, Blockade Labs, Sora, which is OpenAI's version. And so this is made by Fabian Moselle on Reddit. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the video.
The fire department isn't here yet.
All right, I'll pause there. So, Jarrett,
Well,
let me first of all, can you explain what we just saw, because that was quite unique?
I don't know that words can describe what we just saw. It was like, I'll describe it in a different way. People often ask, what are the major societal benefits that AI will bring? And that video is a prime example where AI can bring major societal benefits. I no longer have to wonder what it's like to be on an acid trip by trying acid. I can just watch that video. And now I don't have to actually try acid, and it's going to possibly save me from addiction. So we can use AI to prevent or to save people from trying hard drugs and not get accidentally addicted to them. That's about the best way you can describe that video.
Jarrett, that is huge. Can you imagine the value there for society? Oh my goodness. They should sell that as the kind of like the top line tagline for AI. But Mr. President, why should we adopt AI? Well, just watch this video.
If we can solve the opioid crisis with AI. Here's a video.
I should have known from the caption of the video, the OMG, what is happening, that this one was going to be a wild ride.
It's funny because for me, that shows that text to video is really hard, because what AI needs to understand to successfully do this is not only get the consistency, which is very difficult, but understand the context of the situation and provide a level of interaction with physics involved. So you can sort of see in this video, it didn't really obey physics, right? Things were cutting through other obstacles and it didn't make sense. And so much more difficult to do that in a video sense, especially for longer videos. And if you look at a lot of the text to video services, I think there's a very clear reason for why they keep the length of their videos really short. And most of these clips are not motion based. So they're static and things that are really not moving around in scene. And I think this example is the predominant reason why,
It would be interesting to see what the text was.
You mean the
create
prompt?
That video, the prompt. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they deliberately did this, if they deliberately made it in such a way that encouraged the model to hallucinate as bad as it did, or is the model itself just not capable? So that'd be a really interesting question.
It might have been, you just dropped acid and you need to create a video where a car is on fire and a fictitious superhero comes and puts it out with his cape and then just disapparates into the car, then comes out of the car. Done.
That could very well could be. I guess we'll never know, Jarrett, but that is a problem that I'm not sure requires an immediate solution. Let's put it that way. All right, so let's tee up our final video. So this is another AI video, and it's done by Quantum Anomalies on Reddit. So I want to give credit. So again, this was mostly done by AI. The images were done with Midjourney. Video was done with Runway Gen 2 and 3 with a bit of Luma, and it was upscaled with Stable Diffusion, which is another AI service. And so apparently this user also used ChatGPT for research, created scripts with that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and roll the video.
The mushroom incident. A terrorist attack occurred in Neo-Tokyo. Subject 15TY, a void human, used fungal magic to carry out the attack. The magic rapidly spread, affecting not only the buildings, but also the residents. Giant mushrooms sprouted all over the area, changing the landscape and environment. Researchers from the quantum anomaly were rapidly dispatched to contain the outbreak. Hundreds of residents were affected. The magic mixed with their DNA, altering their appearance and transforming them into walking, living mushrooms. The affected subjects were moved into a quarantine zone to prevent further transmission. However, mutations only occur if a specific magical pathogen is present on contact. 15TY was later captured, classified as an S threat, and sentenced to execution.
All right, Madison. So again, walk us through what that was about, and love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so this one was another example of text to video, a much better example than the first one we saw, for sure. So this one was very detailed as far as the images shown, very realistic in the way that it was presented, and kind of scary in a couple different ways. One, with some of the images on there, and two, when you start to think about, you know, could people start to use technology like this to create falsified events or fake current events or different things that we consume? So very interesting.
Yeah, I see this. So that entire episode, or like that whole storyline, could have been like an entire season in some sort of sci-fi series. So as GPTs get better and better, or as good as some of the top level humans in thinking and creating content, I wonder if Hollywood starts to use these things and start to come out with more original ideas outside of just your sitcom with your 6 favorite friends drinking at a bar and the meeting How They Met Their Mother.
Right, or yet another Marvel movie.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's funny. This, I don't know if the two of you have watched The Last of Us or played The Last of Us, which is a video game series based on this concept of mushrooms, cordyceps mushrooms, kind of zombifying humans. But it kind of reminded me a lot of this. But looking at the video itself, there's a few trends that we can identify. Not a lot of movement, right? A lot of still images, mostly. Not a lot of physics. And so these are the sort of things that I think you have to do with this current generative technology to avoid the problems that we saw in the previous video.
Yeah, because in Hollywood, you have these creators have to go in there and pitch their pilot idea. So if you could go in there with some sort of video or very polished, high quality video to help illustrate what's going to be kind of the theme and the look and the feel of what it is that I'm trying to create here, that could really help you sell your idea and even help you really refine your idea much faster than if you didn't have access to these tools. So we could get some really good, or much better, much more original content coming to your nearest screen.
You're excited about the potential Netflix content. That's all Jarrett
100%.
hears. Better sci-fi shows.
100%.
All right. Well, as we wrap this up, any kind of final thoughts on what you've seen today, Madison? Obviously we covered a bit of a variety of different things, but mostly all driven by AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw a lot of different applications of AI and talked through some of those real world use cases too. I think the speed at which we're innovating right now is absolutely mind blowing, just going through some of these examples. So I'm interested to see what the next few years look like as this technology continues to evolve.
Me too. Me too. All right. Well, let's wrap up. What a fantastic discussion we've had today. Appreciate it, both of you. And I look forward to future episodes. Thank you for coming, both of you.
Thank you.